And while the Premier Soccer League has various dispute resolution mechanisms at its disposal, this to assist with resolving disputes between players, member clubs and the league, there has been an increase in matters landing at other international dispute resolution bodies, which begs the question, is there a gap within the PSL's dispute resolution mechanism, and how does the PSL plan to deal with matters involving foreign players? And more importantly, what is next for Royal AM? Well, this morning we hear directly from the PSL legal counsel, Michael Murphy, who joins me in studio to shed a bit more light on the next steps for Royal AM. Michael, thank you so much for making time for us this morning. I see you came prepared with your handbooks just to perhaps set the scene in terms of what we're seeing here. But before we get to that, perhaps just to recap for our viewers, this is a conversation that we did start on Friday with regards to what is going to happen for Royal AM. What update can you give us in terms of how things stand now and what the next steps are?
Good morning. Before I say anything about that, I just saw my picture that you put up there. And I recently was asked to give a talk to a bunch of lawyers and academics, and they introduced me as a dinosaur. And I felt very aggrieved, but now that I look at my picture, I perhaps understand why they did. Thank you. Thank you for having us. Thank you to you and to your viewers. So where the case stands at the moment is that there was an appeal by Royal AM to the Court of Arbitration for Sport in Lausanne, Switzerland. It was turned down. The merits of that case are something I can explain why, that the league doesn't know that much about other than reading decisions, because we weren't party to the case. But the result of that is that the registration ban that's in place impacting Royal AM stands. So they've exhausted all their football remedies, and they've got nowhere else to go within football tribunals. The effect of that is that the ban remains in place.
All right, so in real terms, and I think what many people would want to know now is, what is the action then expected from the PSL? Because if this does continue and, you know, the payment is not made, what then become the remedies? Is there action that the PSL can take directly?
So one needs to understand, and I don't want to bore everyone with too much detail about dispute resolution mechanisms, but this particular dispute went directly to FIFA at the outset. And we can talk about why and whether there are gaps and so on. But it went to FIFA, to a thing called the FIFA Tribunal, used to be the FIFA Dispute Resolution Chamber. The league wasn't notified of that. It went there. The reasons I can explain why it could go there. They ruled against Royal AM. Royal AM then took it on appeal to CAS and lost. Now, once you select that process, in this case Mr. Nurkovic or whoever has that dispute, if it was you and you had a dispute and you go there, then the remedies and outcomes are affected by the route that you take. So right now there's a ban in place. That ban is FIFA's way of ensuring that people make payment. That's what they do.
So sorry to interject here,
Sure.
Michael, but I think the more important thing, I suppose, would be with regards to the optics. For the PSL, perhaps, the longer this continues without a resolution, it might then start casting certain aspersions. In fact, we did have a conversation with a sports law expert on Friday, Lesedi Mpahleli, who had some words to say about this. And I want you to perhaps listen to the words that he had to say and give your response in terms of the PSL action and perhaps how you intend to then correct the optics and how things would be looking.
The PSL will have to chip in.
Yeah.
Because we know that Royal AM are participants in the Premier Soccer League currently, at the top flight. And, you know, if Royal AM continues to not adhere to the ruling, and this final ruling, especially by CAS, PSL will have to step in and take disciplinary measures against Royal AM, which can be either a financial sort of, you know, sanction, and or it can even go as far as them being suspended from participating in the league. Because at the end of the day, I would go as far as saying them refusing to adhere to these rulings. I mean, first the PSL, DRC, then FIFA, and now CAS, is bringing the game of football into disrepute. So PSL will have to chip in should Royal AM continue to not adhere to the ruling and see how they can sanction them.
So what action then would the PSL be seen to be taking here?
So let me just start by correcting that, and I can understand Mr. Mpahleli is probably not involved in the actual case or knows how it works. In this case, the matter did not go to the PSL DRC, so we need to understand that. So that's just what I said about the route. It went to FIFA, FIFA made a ruling, I say FIFA, the football tribunal, it went to CAS. The way in which FIFA deals with these matters, if you don't make payment, they then refer to their DC. Their DC has jurisdiction. One needs to understand the pyramid. There's different levels of dispute resolution. This one is in a particular place. The consequences, I don't want to comment on Royal M's case. I don't know the merits of their case. But if you don't pay after you've exhausted all your remedies, it is referred to the disciplinary committee. It's happened before, and they can hand down serious sanctions, including deduction of points or expulsion even.
So how close is it to that? And is there a possibility then of perhaps other sanctions, for instance, the deduction of points or the team being disqualified from the league in its entirety? Do the rules actually make provision for that? Is that something that we could see happening?
So which rules are you talking about?
Within the NSL handbook, is there a rule that provides for Royal AM to be disqualified for an offence of this nature?
So, okay, let's stick to where this dispute is at.
Yeah.
So it's at the FIFA level. There's a remedy that's been handed down. If there is no payment, so the ban remains, it will be referred to the FIFA Disciplinary Committee. And yes, in terms of the FIFA Disciplinary Committee, that committee has wide powers. It's happened before to a South African club and to many clubs around the world. Yes, they could order expulsion or deduction of points, and if they do, we have to implement it.
And if you're looking then at, for instance, the DDC matter as well, and the legal remedies available there, that's not one that sits with FIFA. It's slightly different. PSL has full powers there. Should there be a team that wants to participate, as we've seen Cape Town Spurs, for instance, is this something that would be possible where the team gets replaced by another? Or what are the options in that regard in terms of the way forward or what we can expect to see in that matter?
So we all want to be a rule-based system. You know, we all say that, and then when something happens, it becomes free-floating, and we think, what is a good or a bad idea? In this particular case, the DDC has its own rules, which are approved and passed, and those rules deal with a situation in which a club cannot participate. Either they are suspended, they withdraw. I can tell you the history of that, but the executive committee had to consider all of the facts, had to raise questions with FIFA, with SAFA, and the end result of that was Royal AM cannot participate. So their participation was ended. All points, they hadn't played any, but had they been, they were expunged, and it's a 15-team league. So
it's going to then continue as a 15-team league.
Yes.
All right, in short. All right, so then as we then move on, do you believe that there's a gap then that exists within the legislation now, with these matters now going to FIFA as, you know, court of first instance? Would this then perhaps force the PSL to look internally and see how best to have rules to cater for the transfer of foreign players without these having to go to FIFA?
So those who want to understand this process, look at the FIFA regulations on the status and transfer of players. You don't have to read the whole thing. Go to Article 22, and you will see it describes the kinds of disputes that can go directly to FIFA, and there are disputes for having an international dimension. So that's there. That comes from the Bosman case. It has a long history. That's why I'm a dinosaur. I was there. I remember it. But FIFA has introduced a mechanism where you can apply for upfront accreditation of your dispute resolution chamber so that it doesn't go there anymore. And that's a route we should follow. We have an excellent collective bargaining agreement in place with SAFPU, the Players Union, which recognizes this dispute resolution mechanism. We've got letters from FIFA saying, wonderful, it's the best mechanism in the world. What we need is this upfront accreditation. We need SAFPU support, which I know they will give us. SAFPU will support us. We do that, and all our disputes would be heard here in terms of South African law. So
it's basically then collaboration between SAFA, SAFPU, and the PSL that would then lead to these being resolved a bit quicker and without necessarily having these drawn-out processes.
Yes, if we got upfront accreditation, that would mean that no disputes would go to FIFA, that would be heard here directly, and we have an excellent independent tribunal headed by senior counsel, independent, 50-50 representation, club and players, wonderful.
Then, as we wrap up very quickly, matters involving the Dispute Resolution Chamber and Mr. Zola Majavu, the sentiment is perhaps a bit inundated with the requests, and that's why it takes too long. Is there something that the PSL is looking into to make sure that those get resolved a bit quicker and we don't have the end of the season becoming where people are running to the courts to expeditiously resolve matters? Separate
the two out. So Zola Majavu, as you know, is independent. He's the prosecutor. Those are disciplinary matters. Yes. Those go to the DC. It's a separate tribunal, also independent, also brilliant. Unfortunately, at the end of the season, you do get disputes there when people are trying to fight for positions.
Yes.
The DRC is a separate thing. Think of it as a civil court, or like the CCMA, the Commission for Conciliation, Mediation, Arbitration, employment matters. Two entirely separate things. And it works well. I mean, it does work well. One can always try to improve things. We do that. We work hard on it. But it works well.
Well, we're certainly going to have to wait and see just how well it's going to work towards the end of the season, Michael. But thank you so much for making time for us here on the AM Report. That, of course, being Michael Murphy, who's the PSL legal counsel, just coming in to shed a bit of light on the dispute resolution processes and, of course, confirming that the DDC will now continue as a 15-team competition. There will be no replacement for Royal AM, and the points that have been docked are going to then not be reinstituted in the competition, as they'll play no further part. So that's where we'll leave things then for the sport this hour. I will return with your headlines in the next hour.